Chapter 25, Part 1. Only 2 weeks till the wedding. Emily found out how long 2 weeks can be, in spite of the fact that every waking moment was crowded with doings, domestic and social. The affair was much talked of everywhere. Emily set her teeth and went through with it. Ilsa was here, there, everywhere, doing nothing, saying much. "About as composed as a flea," growled Dr. Burnley. "Ilsa has got to be such a restless creature," complained Aunt Elizabeth. "She seems to be frightened people wouldn't know she was alive if she sat still a moment." "I've got 49 remedies for seasickness," said Ilsa. "If Aunt Kate Mitchell gets here, I'll have 50. Isn't it delightful to have thoughtful relatives, Emily?" They were alone in Ilsa's room. It was the evening Teddy was expected. Ilsa had tried on half a dozen different dresses and tossed them aside scornfully. "Emily, what will I wear? Decide for me." "Not I. Besides, what difference does it make what you put on?" "True, too true. Teddy never notices what I have on. I like a man who does notice and tells me of it. I like a man who likes me better in silk than in gingham." Emily looked out of the window into a tangled garden where the moonlight was an untroubled silver sea, bearing softly on its breast a fleet of poppies. "I meant that Teddy won't think of your dress, only of you." "Emily, why do you persist in talking as if you thought Teddy and I were madly in love with each other? Is it that Victorian complex of yours?" "For heaven's sake, shut up about things Victorian," Emily exclaimed, with unusual, un-Murray-like violence. "I'm tired of it. You call every nice, simple, natural emotion Victorian. The whole world today seems to be steeped in a scorn for things Victorian. Do they know what they're talking of? But I like sane, decent things, if that is Victorian." Emily, do you suppose Aunt Elizabeth would think it either a sane or decent thing to be madly in love?" Both girls laughed, and the sudden tension relaxed. "You're not off, Emily." "Of course I am. Do you think I'd play gooseberry at such a time as this?" "There you go again. Do you think I want to be shut up alone a whole evening with undiluted Teddy? We'll have a scene every few minutes over something. Of course, scenes are lovely. They brighten up life so. I've just got to have a scene once a week. You know I always did enjoy a good fight. Remember how you and I used to scrap? You haven't been a bit of good at a row lately. Even Teddy is only half-hearted in a set-to. Perry, now, he could fight. Think what gorgeous rows Perry and I would have had. Our quarrels would have been splendid. Nothing petty or quarrelsome about them. And how we would have loved each other between them. Oh, Honore." "Are you hankering after Perry Miller yet?" demanded Emily fiercely. "No, dear infant, and neither am I crazy about Teddy. After all, ours is only second-hand love on both sides, you know. Cold soup warmed over. Don't worry, I'll be good for him. I'll keep him up to the notch in everything much better than if I thought him a little lower than the angels. It doesn't do to think a man is perfection, because he naturally thinks so too. And when he finds someone who agrees with him, he is inclined to rest on his oars. It riles me up a bit when everyone seems to think I'm so amazingly lucky to get Teddy for a husband. Comes Aunt Ida Mitchell. You are getting a perfectly wonderful husband, Ilsa. Comes Bridget Mooney from Stovepipe Town scrubbing the floor. Gosh, but you're getting a swell man, miss. Sisters under their skins, you perceive. Teddy is well enough, especially since he found out he isn't the only man in the world. He has learned sense somewhere. I'd like to know what girl taught it to him. Oh, there was one. He told me something about the affair. Not much, but enough. She used to snub him terribly. And then, after she had led him on to think she cared, she turned him down cold. Never even answered the letter in which he told her he loved her. I hate that girl, Emily. Isn't it odd? Don't hate her, said Emily wearily. Perhaps she didn't know what she was doing. I hate her for using Teddy like that, though it did him heaps of good. Why do I hate her, Emily? Employ your renowned skill in psychological analysis and expound to me that mystery. You hate her because, to borrow a certain crude expression we've often heard, you're taking her leavings. You demon. I suppose it's so. How ugly some things are when you ferret them out. I've been flattering myself that it was a noble hatred because she made Teddy suffer. After all, the Victorians were right in covering lots of things up. Ugly things should be hidden. Now go home if go you must, and I'll try to look like someone about to receive a blessing. Part 2. Lauren Halsey came with Teddy. The great Halsey, whom Emily liked very much in spite of his gargoylishness. A comical-looking fellow with vital, mocking eyes, who seemed to look upon everything in general, and Frederick Kent's wedding in particular, as a huge joke. Somehow, this attitude made things a little easier for Emily. She was very brilliant and gay in the evenings they all spent together. She was terribly afraid of silence in Teddy's presence. Never be silent with a person you love and distrust, Mr. Carpenter had said once. Silence betrays. Teddy was very friendly, but his gaze always omitted Emily. Once, when they all walked in the old overgrown willow-bordered lawn of the Burnley place, Ilsa stumbled on the happy idea of pick out your favorite star. Mine is Sirius. Lorne? And Terry's of the Scorpion, the red star of the south, said Halsey. Bellatrix of Orion, said Emily quickly. She had never thought about Bellatrix before, but she dared not hesitate a moment before Teddy. I have no especial favorite. There is only one star I hate. Vega of the Lyre, said Teddy quietly. His voice was charged with a significance which instantly made everyone uncomfortable, though neither Halsey nor Ilsa knew why. No more was said about stars, but Emily watched alone till they faded out one by one in the dawn. Part 3. 3 nights before the wedding day, Blairwater and Derry Pond were much scandalized because Ilsa Burnley had been seen driving with Perry Miller in his new runabout at some ungodly hour. Ilsa coolly admitted it when Emily reproached her. Of course I did. I had had such a dull, bored evening with Teddy. We began it well with a quarrel over my blue chow. Teddy said I cared more for it than I did for him. I said, of course I did. It infuriated him, though he didn't believe it. Teddy, manlike, really believes I'm dying about him. A dog that never chased a cat in its life, he sneered. Then we both sulked the rest of the evening. He went home at 11 without kissing me. I resolved I'd do something foolish and beautiful for the last time. So I sneaked down the lane for a lovely, lonely walk down to the dunes. Perry came along in his car, and I just changed my mind and went for a little moonlit spin with him. I wasn't married yet. Don't be after looking at me so. We only stayed out till 1, and we were really very good and proper. I only wondered once, just what would happen if I suddenly said, Perry, darling, you're the only man I ever really care to hang for. Why can't we get married? I wonder if when I'm 80, I'll wish I'd said it. You told me you had quite got over caring for Perry. But did you believe me? Emily, thank God you're not a Burnley. Emily reflected, bitterly, that it was not much better being a Murray. If it had not been for her Murray pride, she would have gone to Teddy the night he called her. And she would have been tomorrow's bride, not Ilsa. Tomorrow. It was tomorrow. The morrow when she would have to stand near Teddy and hear him vowing lifelong devotion to another woman. All was in readiness. A wedding supper that pleased even Dr. Burnley, who had decreed that there should be a good old-fashioned wedding supper. None of your modern dabs of this and that. The bride and groom mayn't want much, maybe, but the rest of us still have stomachs. And this is the first wedding for years. We've been getting pretty much like heaven in one respect anyhow. Neither marrying nor giving in marriage. I want a spread. And tell Laura, for heaven's sake, not to yowl at the wedding. So Aunts Elizabeth and Laura saw to it that for the first time in 20 years, the Burnley house had a thorough cleaning from top to bottom. Dr. Burnley thanked God forcibly several times that he would only have to go through this once, but nobody paid any attention to him. Elizabeth and Laura had new satin dresses made. It was such a long time since they had had any excuse for new satin dresses. Aunt Elizabeth made the wedding cakes and saw to the hams and chickens. Laura made creams and jellies and salads, and Emily carried them over to the Burnley place, wondering at times if she wouldn't soon wake up before. I'll be glad when all this fuss is over, growled Cousin Jimmy. Emily's working herself to death. Look at the eyes of her. Part 4. Stay with me tonight, Emily, entreated Ilsa. I swear I won't talk you to death, and I won't cry either. Though I admit, if I could just be snuffed out tonight like a candle, I wouldn't mind. Jean Askew was Millie Hislop's bridesmaid, and she spent the night before her wedding with her, and they both cried all night. Fancy such an orgy of tears. Millie cried because she was going to be married, and I suppose Jean must have been crying because she wasn't. Thank heaven, Emily, you and I were never the meowing kind. We'll be more likely to fight than cry, won't we? I wonder if Mrs. Kent will come tomorrow. I don't suppose so. Teddy says she never mentions his marriage, though he says she seems oddly changed, gentler, calmer, more like other women. Emily, Do you realize that by this time tomorrow I'll be Ilsa Kent? Yes, Emily realized that. They said nothing more. But 2 hours later, when wakeful Emily had supposed the motionless Ilsa was sound asleep, Ilsa suddenly sat up in bed and grabbed Emily's hand in the darkness. Emily, if one could only go to sleep unmarried and wake up married, how nice it would be.